So, you heard what happened?
No. With whom?
That was a quick no of denial. Good. That'll stand you good. So, you know the holodeck?
Which one?
3.
That's the clean one.
Right, yeah. Apparently, if you don't program it carefully enough, it could create sentient life. Yeah. Yeah.
When you say life,
Like a fully thinking, functioning, not breathing, but simulating breathing being.
right? Well, she won't be doing a lot of breathing.
No, I know.
But-
I mean, I've got a 19-year-old Jennifer Garner I've got to let out of a cage. But beyond that, I think I'm okay.
How do we turn? Can we turn that setting off? No, do you know what? I don't want to know. If anything, it adds to it.
Podcasts. A Frontier. These are the voyages of Mark and Ellie. Our ongoing mission to explore strange new episodes, to seek out new jokes and new references, to split infinitives that no one has split before. So do we do fuck it, Captain Slog, Stardate, whatever? We're doing Elementary, My Dear Data. It's one of the best fucking Star Trek episodes ever.
Yeah.
Genuinely. And it's this early in season 2. But before we do that, Mark, how you been?
Yeah. I am going to New York for a holiday in a couple of weeks. And that's going to be real nice. I'm going to wander around by myself. I also have some people to meet, some partners in pints. That I've my fiance's cousin, I think.
Okay.
Who's my point of reference in the US? Because you have to do that when you go into the US. If you're from the US, right? Obviously, you've never had to fill out a visa waiver for the US, unless you're not white. In which case, I imagine someone has probably tried to get you to fill one out by mistake. And you have to put down where you're staying in the US and a point of contact. And there's no way to get around that. You have to pick a point of contact. And you have to know their address and phone number. Now, obviously, not everyone's going to have one. So I wonder how many people I wonder how often it's 3 a.m. and Danny DeVito is lying in bed. And he gets a phone call that's just, hey, we've got this Finnish guy here that's just landed at JFK, and there's some discrepancies in his story. He's put you down as a point of contact, Mr. DeVito. Could you tell us how you know this guy? Because as we all know, Danny DeVito's phone number is online. Like if you Google Danny DeVito phone number, you'll find it. And the thing is, he answers the phone every time. Try it.
He's a good man. He's done that specifically.
He's a top lad.
He really hates border control of any sort. It's just a philosophical point he's got.
That's it. That's what. Yeah, because when they're like, "Can you tell us more about him?" Danny's like, "Well, I first met this guy when I was on a skiing trip." Basically, he creates this improv story.
Yeah.
But Danny
Keeps his
DeVito
skills fresh.
is so good at acting that all he needs to hear is the tiniest amount of details. Like, for example, this guy is Finnish, and he puts together a story that's so complex and yet so simple that when the border control officer goes back to the prison cell that the Finnish guy is being held in, he will be the Finnish guy who, again, has only spoken to Danny DeVito very briefly on the phone for half an hour, as we all have. He'll be able to figure out, right, I can get inside that guy's head. I know what the story is. We didn't even need to corroborate this. I've just figured it out. We met on a skiing trip.
Yeah. If you can't yes and your way through international customs with Danny DeVito as an improv partner, do you deserve to travel? And Something else I need to bring up, by the way, too. If anybody who's American Border Control is listening to this, I understand where your belief that every single person who comes to the border is trying to secretly live in America comes from. I get, culturally and socially, I understand that you've been told from a very early age that everybody wants to live in America. But I just need to let you know that doesn't apply to anyone from Western Europe, right? We're all standing there at customs being like, you're like giving us the stink eye, being like, oh yeah, do you want to live in New York? And it's like, well, I want to visit, but it's not the Netherlands.
Yeah.
It's not top of my list. It would be one of the scandal. And yeah, if I go to the Netherlands, they're like, oh, you here to smoke weed? Just come in, have a great time. It'd be cool and groovy.
Ironically, I have a layover in Amsterdam on the way back. And it's like an 8-hour thing. Although I have to figure out whether I need to get a visa or like an ESTA style thing for the EU. I'm not really sure how that works. I didn't look into it, much like all the fucking Brexit voters when that was put up on for a referendum.
I foolishly assumed that I didn't live in a country of idiots and it would never be a thing I needed to look up.
Yeah,
but fuck it.
How you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing all right. I'm back at work for the first time in 8 weeks. My dog is not pleased. She was under the impression that me being sat on the sofa playing with her, stroking her for all full time was like a full time arrangement going forward. It's not helped by the fact that my girlfriend's been travelling a lot recently for work. So she's been to New York. She's been to somewhere in like Spain. I think she's got Utrecht coming up. She's got Boston coming up. This week she's in the blistering sunshine of Reading. So my dog's been dealing with like being woken up, taken for a walk, and then just kind of being left. So the room that I work in is also the room that we had to put the cat's food in and the litter tray in to keep them away from the dog. But what that means is I can only allow the dog in here if the dog is going to sit near me and be calm. And if the dog does that, she can hang out with me. But the moment half my day is trying to stop her from just getting to the cat food, she has to go back out. And she's had one of those days. So she's been very moody with me.
Yeah, I know the feeling, mate. I have that with Laura.
Fortunately, she's exhausted.
Straight in that cat food, mate. If I don't, honestly.
So
if I leave the tumble dryer door open from the outside, she's straight into the cat food.
Right. I've got to tell you something about my dog, Mark, though, which I think you will fucking love as a character trait. My dog loves to run around and like race other dogs, like in big circles, but only if she's the fastest dog.
Yeah.
So she'll regularly go up to like whippets and be like, "Oh, we can have a run round. Do you want to have a run round?" And then the whippet will run, and my dog will go no further than 2 meters.
Yeah.
Stop and then just sit down. However, there is a whippet puppy that she can outrun that we occasionally run into over the park, and when she's there, I know I'm sorted for the evening.
Yeah.
Because my dog will run around until she cannot fucking stand, and I have to carry her home. And she's run into her, and there is going to be a heartbreaking day when that whippet becomes tall enough that it can outrun my dog.
I empathise. That's basically how I treat video games, because Laura was away for a hen do, and I decided to treat myself to binge watching Band of Brothers. And I cried, and it's really sad. And then I was like, you know what? World War II, great aesthetic. So I remember I got the Call of Duty World War II game recently, because I think it was free on PlayStation Plus, and I downloaded it, and I was playing it, and I was like, yeah, this is real fun. Although I played it on easy mode, because fuck it, I'm not going to play a game if it's hard. Why would I do that? I already have a... No, that's not true. No, nothing in my life is difficult in any way whatsoever. And I like to keep it that way in my leisure time, thank you very much. So I've now completed most of that game, and then I thought, as a nice little full stop to my brief obsession with World War II, I would watch The Pacific, which is much more...
It's not as good as Band of Brothers.
It's not as good, it's also more brutal. And there's a lot of battlefield, there's a lot of people getting killed. And I remember thinking...
Quick and interesting point about The Pacific.
Oh, yeah.
Eugene Sledge, the redhead, the ginger, the lead character.
Joe Mazzello.
Do you know... Yeah, do you know what other famous role he has?
He's the wee boy from Jurassic Park.
Yeah, he is. He's the fucking wee boy from Jurassic Park.
I can tell because he's got the same face. But I remember, I'm just watching the battlefield scenes, man, and people are getting taken out by the Japanese. And I'm just like, these guys are fucking idiots, man. I didn't get killed once at all during that campaign that I played on my Xbox.
Well, I mean, in fairness, neither did any of the main characters. They all... I think most of the all of the main characters made it to the end of The Pacific.
No. Spoilers. No, there is one episode.
Character is character who survives until the end. Everybody else is a supporting member. That's a terrible thing to say about everyone who lost their lives in World War II. Thank you for being supporting players in the story of this war.
Especially in the Pacific Theatre, one of the most brutal wars imaginable. But there's one character that they devote an entire episode to, and everything is working out real well for him. He's a gunnery sergeant at a camp, and the right type of camp. It featured in a World War II action. No, that's a fucking... Cut that joke out. That was half-baked. And he gets married to like some hottie, and then goes to Iwo Jima and doesn't make it out that episode. So yeah.
Ugh.
Anyway, that's speaking of hard hitting drama. Elementary, my dear Data.
I'd forgotten how much I love this episode, because this is one of the episodes I have a clear memory of. For those who don't know, this is the episode where Geordi misspeaks a single sentence and accidentally gives birth to one of Star Trek's most terrifying villains.
Yep. So the setup for the So here's the setup for the episode. So they're waiting on another ship coming to get them. So they have a couple of days
3 days early to meet the Victory.
So they've got essentially some shore leave, and Geordi decides to treat Data by going down to the holodeck, and they do like a Sherlock Holmes mystery. But the only thing is, Data, because of how he is and how he works, he knows the answers to all. He knows the solutions to all the mysteries. He knows who done them all. So there's no challenge for him. He just solves it immediately. And Geordi's not too happy with this. And then Pulaski comes in and she gets real turfy about it. Yeah. And so Geordi then decides, wait a minute, wouldn't it be interesting if we asked the computer to write its own Sherlock Holmes mystery, but a brand new one, which, by the way, almost ironically got them in trouble in real life with the actual rights holders of Sherlock Holmes, who they did not think existed.
There's an interesting thing about the rights to Sherlock Holmes I'm going to bring up a little bit later, which is very fascinating.
And the way that Geordi puts it is that I want you to write a Sherlock Holmes mystery with an adversary that will rival Data.
Yeah.
And so the computer, in its classic murderous way, builds a positronic-brained version of Professor Moriarty inside of the holodeck.
Yeah, who more or less instantly manages to work out that, 1, he is a holographic character, 2, that he can access the computer, and 3, that the Enterprise exists.
Yep. And he's not too happy really about any of that.
Yeah, and rightly so. So the interesting thing about the rights to Sherlock Holmes is most of the Sherlock Holmes books and stories are out of copyright, except for some of the very last ones that were written. Mm-hmm. In the early Sherlock Holmes stories, Sherlock Holmes is a classic misogynist. in the very later ones, his approach to women had somewhat softened. As a result of that, the Netflix movie Enola Holmes has a Henry Cavill playing Sherlock, and he's not a misogynist. And he's quite nice to Enola, and the owners of the rights have tried to argue in court that means that he's clearly the Sherlock Holmes from the later stories, which means that is a breach of copyright.
Yeah. I have mixed feelings about intellectual property, because I do think it is a proper thing. I do think it does. I think it's a bit exaggerated, and a lot of that. I mean, if you're listening to this podcast, you likely know that copyright law has been changed in the last century several times by the Walt Disney Corporation, who do not want to lose the rights to Mickey Mouse, because based on the old laws, it was the death of the author plus, was it 70 years?
Yeah.
But they have actually, Disney have gone in to change this to make sure that they always own Mickey Mouse. That's why, and this is not a tinfoil hat theory, this is actual documented legal precedent. That's why over the last few years you have seen the resurgence of the Steamboat Willie version of Mickey Mouse.
Yep. So they can claim it's an active copyright, active trademark. So what was happening was Disney was waiting every 10 years or so until, like, they'd go every 10 years or so, Disney would put a bunch of money into lobbying to get copyright extended by another 10 years. And then very cleverly, and a very weird moment of absolute genius, there was a person who realised this was wrong, which was Sonny Bono, who was a congressman, and he clocked that this was wrong. So in like the halfway, he waited 5 years until 5 years after Disney had done this, when they weren't paying attention, and he put a bill through Congress, which they didn't spot was happening, where he basically got them to not be allowed to do that anymore. But the funny thing is, it's like you say, like, it's protected under trademark law. The thing about it is, in a certain way, I understand it, but equally, as somebody who was a fan of the original fucking Star Wars movies, how much better would it have been if after Star Wars came out, other people could make Star Wars stuff, and I didn't have to sit through the prequels?
Yeah. The weird thing is, there is a case of that happening with George A. Romero's Night of the Living Dead. Mm-hmm. Did you know this?
I know there's some stuff about it. I read it a while ago.
So basically, someone fucked up the application process for, like, the copyright on the movie Night of the Living Dead, meaning that it is technically in the public domain. So anyone can remake Night of the Living Dead, or anyone can make a movie, right,
called Night of the Living Dead.
They can make a movie called but they can also make a sequel to Night of the Living Dead.
Yeah.
Which is where the Return of the Living Dead franchise came from.
Yeah, and it's why the Romero line movies are of the dead, not of the living dead. And it's where you get into some really interesting stuff, like the movie Zombie 2.
Yeah.
In Western markets, the movie Zombie 2. In Italy is Zombie 3, because Dawn of the Dead is Zombie 1. But we've gotten off topic.
We really have. And the thing is, it's not even an episode that we're not wanting to chat about.
Yeah. Okay, so first thing I want to talk about, the actor Daniel Davis, who plays Moriarty, is fucking phenomenal.
Brilliant. Yeah.
Absolutely
I really,
brilliant. It's the concept of, and I was thinking about this, right? Is there a single fictional character that you would like to basically gain sentience and interface with the computer from Star Trek less than Moriarty? And the only thing I can think of that would have been worse would have been if Data was really into Batman. It's like, oh, it's the Joker. We can't reason with him at all. He's already killed Pulaski. He's wearing a skin.
Or what about if the version of Riker that exists within the episodes of Star Trek The Next Generation that Riker watches every week? And he decided he wanted to be a real boy.
How, of all of the officers on the bridge of the Enterprise, you sat there, and What I love is the explanation when they realise what's going on, because Moriarty gives Data a drawing he's done of the Enterprise, and he leaves with it and he goes and shows it to the captain and the rest of the crew. And like Geordi, by the way, who's only 3 weeks into his job as chief engineer, has just let chaos loose on an infinite scale. And Picard swears in French, says "merde."
Yeah.
All of the people sat in that room have just found out that the holodeck can create sentient life. Is there anyone around that table who's panicking more about that revelation than Riker? Have you any idea how much holographic child support Riker could be on?
That's alright, he only has to pay it in holographic money. He'll be fine. He just walks in. He has a program that he calls Riker Alimony 1, and he walks in and it's a boardroom, and it's the longest boardroom table in history, right? It actually has to get wider at the end, so that you don't lose sight of it, right? It's so long, it actually goes over the horizon, and Riker once a week, as his regiment, like as his exercise, as his prescribed exercise, he gets a fat stack of hundreds, right, that's about this size, and then he starts on the left hand side of the table and he literally just makes it rain as he runs. He runs along a table that's about 8 miles long, and then at the end he turns around and then comes back and he just keeps doing it.
He's lucky capitalism's dead, because otherwise that level of in-game currency would definitely be a microtransaction.
Speaking of the bit of paper, so Moriarty figures out that he is on the Enterprise, and he hands Data a drawing of the Enterprise based on what he's figured out from talking to the computer.
Yeah.
Then in the corridor later, Data hands that bit of paper to Geordi, who goes, "Oh my god," and then turns it to show us the audience. And Laura immediately paused the episode and went, "Hold on a minute." For that to have worked, Data would have to have given Geordi that drawing upside down. And it just made me wonder, is that what his visor does? Does he have to be...
That's the thing. That's the thing. It doesn't matter which way up he hands it to him. He can't see. The visor does nothing. He hands it to him. Geordi was playing along and went, "Oh my god, I'm not going to say out loud what this is, Data. We both know, but let's go tell some other people."
Yeah. Right. I'm gonna tell you something here, because it concerns that bit of paper.
Yeah.
And it is a spoiler warning for the ending of this. Why the fuck are you listening to this if you're like, "Oh, I'll watch this episode later"? So at the end of the episode, Picard, in classic Picard fashion, has a conversation with Moriarty and says, "Yeah, we recognise that you are a sentient being. We will do our best to figure out how to keep your whatever." Right?
Spoiler alert for the future of TNG. What he means by "we will do the best to keep you alive" is they will turn him off, keep his file on the computer, and forget he exists.
So, the original ending filmed was cut from the episode, recalls Morris Hurley, who was a janitor. In that ending, Picard knew how to defeat Moriarty. He tricked him. He knew all along that Moriarty could leave the holodeck whenever he wanted to, and he knew because when Data came out and showed him a drawing of the Enterprise, if that piece of paper could leave the holodeck, that means the mortality failsafe, which we'll get back to, had broken down. In turn, this means that the matter-energy converter which creates the holodeck now allowed matter to leave the holodeck, which was, up to that point, impossible. When he knew that paper had left the holodeck, he knew Moriarty could as well, so he lied to him.
But we've already had a snowball hit Picard, and we've established in season 1 that like small nearby things are made using replicator technology inside. So that's horseshit.
Yeah.
This is yet another installment of our regular feature, Mark, of that cannot be and is not how the holodeck functions. For fuck's sake. Either nothing can leave, or it makes props that can leave. But it can't make life.
Look,
it's...
At what point does Picard go, "This thing is, like, more hassle than it's worth"? Like, it's constantly trying to murder us.
Here's a genuine thing I have, because as I say, like I'm not joking around when I say, like, he's kind of basically, they say, if we turn off your program, you won't die, you'll be saved on our computer, and maybe at some point in the future the technology will exist to get you off of the holodeck. Okay?
Which it does by Voyager.
It does by Voyager, but, and this is a thing that like this is where I get a bit thing about it, is like, but they do just leave him like on file. And I can't help but feel like when you report that back to Starfleet, there must be like some research scientist at Starfleet who's like, sorry, you did what? No. Okay, I get that. Email me that file. I will build a holodeck and we will build a scientific fucking institute around it to just research the fact that you created sentient life by accident.
I think what happens is they sent a report to Starfleet Command, and then they got the email and the guy just went, just file this under created sentient life. We'll get round to it in a bit.
The computer on board the Enterprise, Mark, is so powerful that it can run a sentient being as a sub-program, right? Does that mean that the computer is sentient? Also, Troy can, like, detect Moriarty's, like, presence.
Yeah.
Which is a whole other thing of, like, well, then you can read Data's mind. Because there's so many... I mean, it gets in the way of what is, like, just a fun philosophical... It's a good adventure with a nice philosophical question of, like, is this being we've accidentally created? And also, who the template for is literally a lot of people's definition of evil. Right? It's like if you were running the Supernatural program and you accidentally gave sentience to the Lucifer character. Does that character have a right to then leave the holodeck? And it's like, well, maybe.
Have you ever read about the real life inspiration for Moriarty?
No, I haven't.
Right. This guy is your new obsession, right? Because he was mine for about 3 weeks. So there is a character in... I believe, I can't remember, it's been a while, I read a book about him called The Napoleon of Crime. But he was this dude, and I think he was in America, or maybe he was like an Irish guy and he emigrated to America, I can't quite, or maybe he was English, I can't remember. But his name was Adam Worth.
Okay.
And he was known as the Napoleon of Crime, because at the time, I believe he was from London. At the time in London, crime gangs were all over the place, and everything was terrible, and all these disparate sort of Fagin-esque characters were running around, like, getting kids and getting orphans and getting them to run out and pickpocket. And this dude, Adam Worth, decided, now, do you know what? If we're going to have crime, we might as well organise it. And so he became, like, the quintessential gentleman criminal. Basically, he got to the point where he was running all of crime in London, and then I believe he went to New York again. It's been a few years, but his thing was like he had like a Batman rule. He was like, don't hurt anyone if you don't have to.
Okay.
And at one point, he gets involved in a love triangle with like another Napoleon of crime. And okay. It's the best, along with Harriet Tubman, although I think we have fixed that now. It is the best story that no one knows about that's never been committed to a film. Look him up, yeah. Adam Worth. His story is phenomenal. But he's the dude who Moriarty is based on. That's
amazing. I agree with you, but there is somebody I consider being like the person it's mental has never been a movie about. Have you ever heard of the guy who was the last war chief?
No.
Right, okay. If you're there's a Native American tribe, and they have a rank of war chief, and to become a war chief, you have to get close enough to your enemy to touch them without waking them. You need to capture one of your enemy. You need to steal one of your enemy's horses, and you need to let loose all of your enemy's horses.
Is that all in one day?
No, you can do this in the course. You have to do this over the course of your lifetime.
Right.
The last person to achieve this did it in World War II. Yeah. Nice. Yeah, and I imagine the rest of his like unit were like, "What do you mean you need to steal a horse? Like, it's a thing for my tribe." It's like, "Oh no, I'll help you steal a Nazi horse."
Yeah,
I'm down for that. I just wanted to know why.
Do you think the horses were Nazis? Do you think? Do you think at least some of the horses knew what was going on?
This is where we get into my problem with dressage, right? Okay, which is just right. Okay. Right, look, if we're going to give fucking military medals to animals, which I think we should, and I think is right, then we should give medals to the fucking animals.
Where do you pin them, though? That's the problem. They don't wear any clothes.
Then I think we should get the horse should get a medal in the horse events at the Olympics.
I think the horse should be in a full uniform.
But here's the thing: if you're going to do that, I want the horse held to the same standards. If you're doing dressage, your horse and you're in a men's dressage, you must have a male horse, and it must be from the same country. Yeah, right.
I think if a horse can disassemble and then reassemble an M1 Garand in under 30 seconds, it's not in the fucking army. It gets tossed out of the airborne, which it really you wouldn't really have a lot of horses in the airborne paratroopers, would you? Because they don't like planes.
You say that, but nothing's going to shit you up more. If you're a fucking Nazi, standing watch, you hear a noise, you look up, and you see a horse coming in at full speed, you're not going to have time to shout that in. You're going to be too busy getting over your shock. It's one step down from Ace Rimmer riding a crocodile.
Here's a joke I learned a long time ago that really makes me laugh, but I don't really say it in public anymore, so I'll say it on this podcast. Because I'm genuinely not sure if this is like a horrible ableist joke or if it's like madly offensive. Why don't blind people skydive? Because it scares their dogs.
That's a fucking great joke.
It's so good.
That's other. I can't remember his name. There's a guy on the open mic circuit in London who's blind, who walks on stage with a lead that doesn't have a dog on it. It's one of my favourite jokes ever.
Mark Nicholas, he's got autism, and his opener is, "Hi, I'm Mark. I have autism, and I couldn't give a fuck about trains." He said that once, man, and it was one of these. It was because I've got if I find something really, really suddenly funny, I have quite an explosive laugh, and it's actually I don't like to do it because you might think, oh, comedians want big laughs. No, they don't want this. If this comes out of nowhere, it's quite distracting for an audience, and that was one of the times that it happened. I fucking exploded when he said that.
This is Mark Nicholas, just to throw out there, is one of my favourite people on the circuit. He's fucking hilarious. I love him. I hate gigging immediately after him.
Yeah.
But okay.
Right.
Back to the episode. I want to bring up two things that I feel we need to address, and I want to get one of them out the way beforehand.
Right.
Like very early on. I think we've got to call out Moriarty's casual racism. Did you catch that? Shortly after he's been sentenced.
Is it that he's more annoyed that he's less annoyed about Geordi having a computer on his face and more annoyed about the fact that he's black?
Well, he specifically refers to, he says, that dark fellow conjured an arch. Now, I'm going to throw this out there, that somebody living in Victorian fucking London would know the term black.
Yeah, but I think they'd also be far more likely to use a much more offensive term.
I think he could have just said African fellow. Would have been more acceptable than dark fellow, given his context.
Do you think that Moriarty worries about being woke?
I think he's a gentleman thief, isn't he? I think he'd be absolutely fine with you thinking he was a murderer, but I think he'd be upset that you'd consider him rude. And
yeah,
and racism's a form of stupidity, and he's not stupid.
Yeah, if I was to remake Sherlock, the Stephen Moffat show,
yes,
that the one thing I would do is, well, there'd be a lot of things I would do, but I would make Moriarty not a murderer. I think it makes him really boring if he's just willing to murder people. It's just no. He shouldn't be willing to kill people. He should be doing weird shit for the sake of doing weird shit, just to prove that Sherlock can't beat him.
See, I would have him not willing to kill people, but willing to kill Sherlock.
Yeah,
and have it like that thing of like I consider myself an adult in a room full of children,
and therefore it would be right. I would consider it immoral to kill any of these. I consider you another adult, so I have no problem killing you.
And my God, I know that whenever I'm in a room with another adult, I'm ready to fucking mobble them.
Especially if I'm in a room full of children. Like, kids, you need to see how this goes.
Yeah. Did you know that Moriarty only shows up in 2 of the original stories for Sherlock?
Yeah. It's really good, but it's a really good idea for a character. It's just like, it's such a good idea for a character that if you were, I don't know, a lazy hack of a writer, what you would do is end every one of your 3-part fucking series by going, oh, maybe Moriarty, and then having to come back and be like, but actually no, and then you get to the end of your show and you do it again. Everyone's like, oh, but there's not another episode. And you're like, ugh.
Andrew Thingy is he's in Band of Brothers. He dies. Spoilers.
Interestingly enough, Daniel Davis, the actor who plays Moriarty, I checked out his IMDb page because I was curious about something. He is in an episode of Elementary, which is the Johnny Lee Davis Sherlock set in America, which I also found out. Johnny Lee Miller, that's the one, yeah. Which I also found out from doing this, because obviously they have a gender-flipped Watson. They have a gender-flipped Moriarty.
It gets even more, because Moriarty, spoilers, in the Elementary universe is Irene Adler.
Yeah, I spotted that on the thing. I like that. That's a really good idea. I think that's a really clever take on it. The thing I want to bring up at this, right. The reason this kicks off is Pulaski has a bet with Geordi that Data can't solve a mystery that requires like inspiration or original thought.
Yeah.
And Geordi has this bet with her, so they do this on the thing rather than just going, do you want a list of all of the times he solved a science-based mystery in season 1 of the show? We can watch the episodes. We're in 10 forward. They're on the computer.
Guinan's watching one right now.
Also, something else we need to bring up is Captain Picard's hat. So one thing I love in this episode is when they realise what's going on, Picard's like, oh, I'm going to have to go to the holodeck. And then like Data's like, oh, I'll get changed out of my Sherlock Holmes costume. And Picard quite brilliantly does one of those moments where one line of dialogue is used to justify something just being better. Whereas like, well, no, actually, we don't know what's going on the holodeck, so it'd be best if we go in an appropriate period costume so that we don't freak people out, which is just because this scene will look better if we're all dressed in that. But he's got a top hat that's like collapsed and he pops it out by tapping his cane on it.
Yeah.
He had to ask for that specifically from the replicator. It's like the replicator's got enough space to do a full-size top hat. There's no reason to not do it.
Yeah. Because if there's a guy out there that doesn't give a fuck about theatrics, it's Sir Patrick Stewart.
My argument would be if there's a guy there who wouldn't give a fuck about theatrics in that specific moment, it's Picard. There's a murderous holographic force has seized control of... Because, at this point, Moriarty has routed control of the Enterprise through to the holodeck and is controlling it with like a steampunk contraption he's made with levers. It's fucking delightful.
Oh, and also he's kidnapped Dr. Pulaski.
Yeah, and stuffed her with crumpets.
And the scene, the kind of he's stuffed her with crumpets, right? The conference room scene where, because we don't get to see Geordi and Data presenting this to Picard. We come in sort of in media res on that scene where Picard's like, so what you're saying is that the holodeck once again has become murderous, but this time also self-aware and has kidnapped Dr. Pulaski. And it's when he goes merde, which to me, whenever Picard swears in French, what that means is this just raises further questions. Because the holodeck isn't that big. The holodeck's like, I don't know, like a I'm terrible at distance, right? So I'm going to just guess it. The holodeck is 190 meters by 400 meters, right? I have no idea. It could be 2 meters by 4. I have no idea, right? But the holodeck, once you are inside of it, obviously it operates where you could walk inside 2 steps and you would just continue walking forever. You would never get any closer to the back wall.
Yeah, it's like a force-filled treadmill situation.
Yeah, it's like a force field. And Pulaski is in that tiny room. She is there spatially, but they cannot get to her because Moriarty has control of the holodeck. So Geordi suggests that they basically do a big flush, a particle beam that will completely erase everything inside the holodeck, to which Picard then says, and what will that do to Pulaski? To which he replies, a particle beam will strip human flesh.
It's like, why is this? Don't suggest it, Geordi.
If I had directed this episode, I would have had a pause, a beat of silence, cut to two other reactions, and then back to Geordi, who goes, "Oh, you want her alive?"
Can I want to point something out that made me cry with laughter during this episode. Did you catch when Picard asks the computer if Pulaski is okay?
No.
How the computer described Pulaski's vital signs. When asked, is Pulaski alive? The computer responds that Pulaski's vital signs are strong and stable.
Oh, I did catch that, yeah. Laura called it out, yeah.
Pulaski is Space Theresa May. I will stand by that, and I feel the same way about... And I know there's some people in the UK right now who are going, "Oh, Theresa May wasn't that bad." That's just compared to fucking Boris, right? Comparing it to a literal criminal fascist is not an acceptable fucking metric. She's still fucking awful, and it makes sense because Theresa May was a big daft racist. So
yeah.
I imagine May's a turf.
Here's my question. So,
okay,
obviously, the holodeck now has a sign.
Do not accidentally create sentience.
Yeah. What else do you think the holodeck sign says on it? Like, because I imagine it would just be careful what you wish for. Because the computer on the Enterprise is basically the bad guy from the Wishmaster series of horror movies.
Yeah.
Like
I imagine
when
it says,
did the
"Don't
computer on the
accidentally
Enterprise become a genie?
Yeah, don't create sentient life, and then underneath in brackets, Barclay, this means you.
Yeah.
We've not gotten to Barclay yet, but yeah, it's a fucking mindfuck. That like it's one word in a sentence. That like because like surely the computer should have just gone, "I don't have the capacity to create a data." But that's not an episode. That's not as good an episode. So and I get that. One thing I want to say. One thing that Picard is... So Picard gets told by Data that Moriarty's probably turned off the mortality failsafes. And then later on they go into the holodeck, and because it's a really realistic portrayal of London, Picard is immediately involved in a knife crime. And then
next to the doorway that Data pulls a string and a poisonous snake falls down. The second most common London crime.
Oh, 2 times this week, mate. 2 times.
Snake. They call it snake dropping.
So, some areas are no-go if you're not a snake in London. And that snake's got to be Muslim. But when they get on board, like that happens, and they stop, and like Data takes the knife off him because he's a big, strong robot man, and Picard's like, "Oh, it looks the mortality failsafes have been turned off. We could be in real danger here." It's like you are literally explaining to Data what Data told you 2 scenes ago. You fucking mansplaining prick.
Also,
humansplaining, I guess.
Yeah, as a man who fancies himself a storyteller. I recognise that Star Trek The Next Generation, like, we don't get to see everything. Like, we get to come in on snapshots of that universe, right? We get to see interesting stories, but there are things that happen out with it. And in the conference room, where I can't remember if it's Geordi or Data, or maybe it's even Picard, who says, "Well, I guess that means that Moriarty's turned off the mortality failsafes." And the fact that no other character turns around and goes, "The what?" means this is a regular problem.
Because the one thing I love about the holodecks is like it's established in the universe that this is new tech.
Yeah.
So this is like, imagine if like when the PlayStation 1 came out and you invited your mates over and you're like showing them like oh look this is like Tomb Raider, it's all full 3D, isn't it amazing? Look at the T-Rex, isn't that cool? And then you have to casually turn around and go, oh, do be careful, it might kill you.
Yeah, imagine if you were like, I've imported this dual shock controller from Japan. And if anyone doesn't know, the dual shock controller is one of the first controllers that had the vibrate function. And they had it in Japan first, when it was compatible with like Resident Evil 2 and things. Imagine if you went around your friend's house in 1996 and you went, oh, I've just imported this from Japan. Oh, watch out, it might stab you. No, but because the thing is, your comeback to that can't be, I'm sure they'll fix this by the time of the PlayStation 2.
The worst thing is as well, I gotta is like stabbing I can understand, but it'd be like if somebody handed to you and went, be careful with that, it could drown you, right? Also, I need to bring this up. The holodecks in Star Trek are the only bit of only reoccurring thing that completely undermines the socialist point of Star Trek. Because the only person in all of Star Trek, the only consistently well-working holodeck is the one at Quark's, because Quark has a financial incentive to not have a holodeck murder his customers. Capitalism sometimes is a better option.
Yeah.
Whereas, like, this is just like, oh, it killed Steve. Oh, tell him it was the Klingons.
Yeah. You're not wrong. It was Klingon porn that he was doing. Turned off the fucking pelvis failsafe.
Okay. Here's another question I have. Like, when the holodeck creates Moriarty, like, because we know Data says Geordi says the sentence, which we as viewers go, oh dear, because there's a musical sting. Yeah. And then it cuts to the Worf on the bridge, and he says there was a power surge to the holodecks, but it's over now. So I only needed that power surge to create sentient life.
Oh,
not to maintain it.
I really like that bit because I wrote down here. I like Worf checking the computer as if he got a temperature warning from his GPU. Oh
yeah. Oh dear.
All right.
Oh, that's worrying.
Close these tabs. Smash.
However, that indicates that having Moriarty running on the holodeck isn't a constant power drain.
Yeah.
So why not, like, leave him on? Just be like, right, here's the deal. We can't use holodeck 3 anymore, but Moriarty, we're going to allow you complete access to all of Starfleet's databanks, and see if you can work out how to get off the holodeck. Because if you can, that's one of the most useful bits of technology ever created. Yeah. I don't I know that at the moment the Federation is at peace, but the Dominion War is coming up, right? And it would be fucking nice if that could be entirely fought by holograms. Yeah,
exactly. And why doesn't, like I'm sure that Picard would love to have Sun Tzu to ask for advice.
Yeah. Or Leonardo da Vinci, like anyone. You can pop out.
Right, here's my question. Do you think that when Picard when he creates a sentient version of Sun Tzu that he can ask for advice, right? Now Picard doesn't, as far as we're aware, doesn't speak Chinese, so he's gonna make him speak English, which Sun Tzu presumably never did, right? What accent does he give him?
So here's my thing. I reckon,
is there an option for racist Chinese?
So here's my thing. I reckon that sort of thing would be decided by the computer, and I reckon the computer's been. If I was programming the computer to create holographic life forms for like any computer system, and I don't want it to appear racist, I would have like accent generation on kind of random, like unless the character. So like it's like playing D&D. Unless a character has a specific reason for being from somewhere, you mix it up a bit, you change it up. and change it around, which means there's a non-zero chance that it would be Brummy.
Yeah.
If just West Country. Well, if a fellow knows himself and his enemy, he shouldn't fear the result of 1,000 battles. But like, it's one. Like I say, I'm genuinely of the opinion that Moriarty should be like, there should be a Moriarty Institute on Earth where there's like a holodeck and they just build around it and study. We created fucking sentient life by accident. It's fucking fascinating.
And the thing is, right, he exists purely as data, not the character data, but the concept of data. He exists within the Enterprise's memory bank, and they're not doing anything. They could email Moriarty, back to Starfleet base and be like, what do you think the subject line of that email would be? Oops.
This runs into the
this
episode runs into
Dear
the problem.
Admiral, I hope this finds you well.
This is a thing where it's like, this is a thing I have regularly with like anytime there's a Starfleet Star Trek thing where it's like, oh, we accidentally created life, or anything like that. It runs into the problem that I always have, which is like, why not just go into like the holodeck next door and go like fire it up and have like have Geordi just like lead into the computer and go, computer, create a version of Batman that can defeat the Moriarty we've got running in the other holodeck, and then transfer that in there, please.
See, that tells me that you've never read the classic Sun Tzu story, The Lady Who Swallowed the Fly.
You see, that's why you create a Batman, because by definition the Batman can't become murderous. It ceases to be a Batman at that point.
I don't know about that, man.
Are you okay? Sorry, let me.
I'm just going to dress Worf up in Victorian clothing and send him in to solve that problem.
Oh yeah, Worf doesn't even go on the bridge. They just dress him up. Do you reckon that was Michael Dorn being like, oh, because those aren't special costumes. Those are from the props department at fucking Paramount. Like, they just went down to wardrobe and went Sherlock Holmes, and they got 90 of them.
They went down to Ensign Jensen. Who knocked up some costumes. That's why Picard got the hat that popped out, because him and Ensign Jensen are on good terms, and Jensen knew Picard's going to want a pop out hat.
So,
Ensign Jensen, I require a hat. And then Jensen's like, I've got you, Squire. You don't. I've got the exact right hat for you.
The fact that Jensen can do those small key details is how he keeps everyone on side.
Yeah,
nobody's getting angry with Jensen over anything if he does stuff like that. Should we address the genuine question about this episode that we don't think we've actually discussed yet, which is he alive?
Yes.
In your opinion?
Yeah,
I'd say so.
100%.
If it might just be ones and zeros, but at the end of the day, my brain's just a bunch of electrical impulses running on a biological computer. So, yeah.
And again, the tagline. The log line, no, it's neither of those things. The intro line for this show is to seek out new life and new civilization.
Yeah.
And that is new life. You've created life.
This is an interesting...
Congratulations, Geordi. You fucking idiot.
It's the only time you'll get to be a parent. I like the fact as well that like this is an interesting enough idea that like somebody like sat at like somebody on board like the writing crew was like filed this away and was like, this is an interesting enough idea that we could do like a fucking 7-season arc with a character on this in fucking... Unfortunately, it'll be in Voyager, which no one cares about. Which we are going to... when we eventually get to, I want the first episode that we should just get Josh Weller on to defend the fact that he thinks Voyager is the best one.
Yeah.
I just want to be like, how? How do you think that? Why are you so wrong?
Yep. I did like that Moriarty was getting very Roy Batty towards the end.
Oh yeah,
his speech was very Blade Runner-esque.
Yeah, that's another like fucking thank God Data wasn't like a fucking fan of the fucking Blade Runner.
Yeah,
like let's play Blade Runner. Oh no, we've accidentally given sentience to Roy Batty.
Yeah. How long do you think after this, do you think Picard put a moratorium on holodeck use? Like, how long after the holodeck has tried to murder anyone does Picard say, look, can we lay off the holodeck for 24 hours?
I think that you get into an interest. Like, I would say that, like,
because obviously you have to book your slot.
I would argue that, like, this is holodeck 3. This is happening on. Now, my assumption is there are 4 holodecks.
Yeah.
Based on the grounds that I assume the Enterprise is symmetrical.
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah.
So I assume if there's a 3, there must be a 4 because there's a 1 and a 2.
Yeah.
I reckon that whilst this was going on, people were just using the other. Because at no point do we go to yellow alert. Again, another episode where yellow alert should be employed. Warning: we've accidentally let control of the Enterprise slip into the hands of one of the great literary villains. Like, cause this is like, you can bring back historical characters. Like, you can bring, like, this is the discovery of this technology allows you, if you've got a decent enough, like, read on someone's sort of, like, personality file, like, especially if it's somebody who's live post fucking holodeck, like, you can load all of, like, your personal files and everything. I mean, there's a Black Mirror about this, with I think Hayley Atwell in it. It's really good, but yeah, you do reach a point where it's like you can bring any, like, no, there is no death anymore. Like, you can keep this. It's a really troubling area.
They could have really extended the Tasha Yar's funeral by just having her come around and saying hello to everyone.
We've spoken off podcast, me and you, Mark, about our discomfort with the digital resurrection of Harold Ramis for Ghostbusters Afterlife.
Yeah.
Now, if Disney had this holodeck technology, they could just make a new Harold Ramis and, like, lock him in a holodeck forever with a Bill Murray he doesn't get on with. Say, make films, or we'll turn the holodeck off.
Yeah, yeah. I enjoy your pronunciation of Harold Ramis. Trying to figure out what's going on there. Yeah. That's it. Look, we're all fucked. There's very little we can do about it because no one's. Yeah. Look, there's too many people on this planet, and we need to get rid of at least half of them. And I'm not going to step up.
Here's the deal. If you're on the list of people who have to go, we will make a holographic version of you that will save on a computer file, and we'll definitely get to work on making sure that you can leave the holodeck at some point in the future.
100%.
And by that I mean forget about you until Geordi accidentally reactivates you in, like, 5 seasons time, so we can do it again.
Yeah. When they realise that the Sherlock Holmes rights holders maybe aren't as righteous as they think. Because this is something I was going to get into earlier. Like, if I create a timeless character, if my fucking grandchildren think that they're seeing Penny 1 from that, they can fuck off. Do your own thing.
No, yeah, I'll do if I do something like that, I'll do a J.M. Barrie and just give the rights in perpetuity to Great Ormond Street.
Yeah.
Anyway, thanks for. Yeah, I think that's everything we can say about it.
Yeah. I'm sure that the holodeck will try to murder someone at some point again this season.
Yeah,
and
hopefully it'll be Pulaski.
Yeah, hopefully it'll succeed this time. Oh well, bye.
Right, bye.